Hi, I'm Terri Savelle Foy, and I want to talk to you today about making destiny decisions. You may be in a transition in your life, or you might be contemplating a transition in your life. You might be scared about an upcoming transition in your life, and you need to make a decision. So many people that I know right now are in transition. They're making decisions that are going to affect the rest of their lives. In fact, we are. I shared on previous podcast how my ministry is in a transition phase, leaving a ministry that I've served for 22 years, Terri Savelle Ministries, my dad, and we are transitioning into our new ministry. Our office is an hour and a half away in Rockwall, Texas. Well, that's a major destiny decision. That's a major transition, to move offices, to move houses, to move cities, to move everything that was normal. That is a major decision. And anytime you make a major life-altering decision, it's gonna take courage. But here's the thing I wanna challenge you with this week. No matter where you are in your life, whatever decisions you're needing to make, I want you to not settle. Determine that you are not going to settle for life the way it is. That you're not going to settle for an average life, a mediocre life, when you know that God has more for you. God doesn't want us to get too comfortable, too relaxed, to where we just settle for life the way it is. He is constantly challenging us, stretching us, wanting us to go to the next level. And that requires making a decision. I think about a story I heard about a young 16-year-old girl who got pregnant in high school, dropped out of school to have her baby. After a while, she, got a hold of the Word of God, began building herself up and realizing that God had so much more for her. She actually went back to school and got her GED. Then she got a job working in a cafeteria in the school, right there in the high school there. She started working in the cafeteria collecting meal tickets. At the same time, she decided, God has more for me. I'm not going to stop here. She went to college, got her bachelor's degree, decided again, God has more for me. I'm not going to settle here. Went back to school, got her master's degree, eventually got her doctorate. She's now a principal in the same school district where she used to work in the cafeteria. Now that young girl made a destiny decision. She made a firm quality decision that she wasn't going to settle. She was going to stretch herself out of her comfort zone. She could have settled for life at 16, pregnant or with a little baby. She could have settled for a life of somebody will help take care of me. I'll just get a job that'll help me survive. But no, she knew God had more, but it was going to require more of her. Anytime you want to make a decision that's going to affect the rest of your life, it's going to require more from you. In fact, you think about the 4 lepers in the book of Kings. You remember how the 4 lepers were sitting outside the city gate? And back then, those lepers in the Bible, they had that disease that was a flesh-eating disease. In other words, you could tell they were lepers. Lepers in those days were outcast. They were homeless. They were begging people for food, begging people for money, and they're just sitting outside the city gate like they did day after day, year after year, watching everybody else live their lives, passing them by. Finally, one of them pipes up and says, "Are we just going to sit here until we die?" And they thought about it. If we sit here, we could die. We're eventually going to die. If we get up and go for our dream, we could die also. We might as well try, go after our dream and die trying. But they actually got up. They made a quality decision that we are going to get up, get out of our comfort zone, force ourselves to go after the dream. They went into the city, and it says that the Lord caused their footsteps to be amplified, to sound like this mighty army. They actually went in and got all the food and the money they wanted. They came out well-fed and rich. They were blessed. But you know what? That took courage. It took a major decision to get up and go for what God has for them. Well, the same is true for you and me. We have to make a decision that we're not going to settle. I heard somebody say the game of football, they described the game of football is like 60,000 people who desperately need to exercise watching 22 men who desperately need to rest. And they said that's indicative of life itself. Very few people actually get up off the bleachers and get in the game. Well, I hope on this podcast it's encouraging you, inspiring you, and maybe even reminding you it's time to get up. Don't settle for life the way it is. Don't just sit back on the bleachers and watch everybody else play the game of life, fulfilling their purpose, pursuing their dreams, when God is saying it's time for you to do the same thing. It's time for you to make those tough decisions that you know you need to make. Spend time with God, listening for Him. Journal your time with Him, but make that decision. This is your time to get up and go for it. You know, it also reminds me of, a story here in my hometown of Burleson, Texas. We have this little restaurant called Babe's Chicken House, and it's just a down-home country place where everybody goes to get their chicken fried steak or chicken fried chicken, mashed potatoes. It's just a cute little country restaurant that everybody loves around here. Well, as you're sitting there eating, sometimes they'll play the hokey pokey and people get up and dance. They also have a moment where some of the waitresses and waiters will grab the microphone and just start singing, and they have beautiful voices. I was there the other day and a young guy was singing, and it was just so beautiful. Well, a few years ago, my family was there, and all of a sudden we heard this Patsy Cline song from the old country singer Patsy Cline, and she was singing Crazy. But we knew it wasn't Patsy Cline, but it sounded just like her. We look around and it's one of the waitresses with the mic walking from table to table singing Crazy. Her voice was incredible. Well, a couple years later, we see the same girl singing the same song, walking around waiting tables at Babe's Chicken House. Well, there's another girl from our hometown of Burleson, Texas, who also had a dream to sing, who has an amazing voice. But she did something different. She made a destiny decision to get up off the bleachers, to get the courage to step out of her comfort zone and go after her dream of singing. She auditioned for American Idol, ended up winning the whole contest, and I just read the other day where she has sold over 20 million albums. Kelly Clarkson, same hometown, same opportunity, but one of them made a destiny decision. Another one, unfortunately, at this point in her life, has chosen to just settle for waiting tables and singing from table to table. Well, it also depends on the dream that you have, but I want you to stretch yourself. And I'm not saying it's bad for the girl who's waiting tables. That's fine if that's what she wants. But God has so much more. He's gifted every one of us with certain gifts and talents, but I want to challenge you. Don't settle. Don't come a year from now and look back and say, my life hasn't changed at all. Look at the other people. They're pursuing their dreams. I'm still doing the same thing. If you're in the perfect will of God, that's great, but God always has more for you. So this week, I want you to just ask yourself, what is it that I need to make a decision about? And Lord, I ask you to give me the courage to step out and do it. And one of the ways you can stir yourself up is build yourself up in the Word of God. Subscribe to these podcasts. Listen to one after the other so you get built up to go after your dreams. Also, tell your friends to subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. I want to keep you encouraged to go after your dreams. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.